So, if you're getting into investing, you've probably had this exact moment, right? You decide to buy an ETF, you even know what you want to invest in, and then you see pretty much the same fund offered by four different huge companies. It's like a battle of the titans. And today, we're going to figure out how you can pick your champion. Yep, Vanguard, BlackRock's iShares, Schwab, Fidelity. These are the big four. They're all household names, and they all want a piece of your investment. So, how in the world do you choose the right one for you? It can feel totally paralyzing, but don't worry. We are going to break this down piece by piece. All right, here's our game plan for this bake-off. First, we'll meet the four ETF giants. Then, we'll get into the main event, cost. It's a big one. After that, we'll look at performance and see if there's a surprise tie. We'll compare their different approaches to variety versus simplicity. We'll touch on some hidden perks like taxes. And then, the big finale, figuring out which provider is the perfect fit for you. All right, first things first, let's meet the contenders. You know them, you've seen them. Vanguard, BlackRock, Schwab, and Fidelity. These are the titans of the ETF world. Okay, section 2. And honestly, this is the main event. We're talking about costs, because the fees you pay, even if they look microscopic, can absolutely make or break your returns in the long run. So, the magic number you need to know is the expense ratio. It's basically the tiny annual fee you pay the company to manage your money. And the rule of thumb here is dead simple. Lower is always better. So, let's put these giants to the test and see how they stack up. All right, let's get into the numbers, and wow, they tell a story. Vanguard, the OG of low-cost investing, comes in with an average expense ratio of just 0.05%. That is incredibly low. Schwab is right there with them at about 0.08%. BlackRock's iShares is a little higher at 0.16%, and that's partly because they offer so many specialized niche funds. And Fidelity comes in the highest on average at 0.31%. And a big reason for that is they're really big into actively managed ETFs. You're paying for a human touch, a manager who's trying to beat the market, and that just costs more. Makes sense. And this chart just makes it so obvious, doesn't it? I mean, look at those bars. Vanguard and Schwab are just dominating the low-cost race. That little sliver of a bar for Vanguard, that's their whole philosophy in a picture. Keep your costs as low as humanly possible so more of your money stays your money. Okay, but let's be real. What does a number like 0.03% even mean? It sounds like nothing. Well, it means you're paying just $3, for every $10,000 you invest per year. That's it. When you see it like that in plain dollars and cents, you really get why every fraction of a percent matters. Okay, so this leads to the obvious question, right? If you're paying less, does that mean you get worse performance? Well, that brings us to section 3, performance. And let me tell you, the answer here is kind of surprising. Just take a look at this. When you pull up the 10-year returns for some of their big, broad market index funds, look, Vanguard, iShares, Schwab, they're all pretty much identical, hovering around that 13 to 14% mark annually. And that's the big secret. The performance isn't coming from some magic sauce at Vanguard or Schwab. It's coming from the index they're all tracking, like the S&P 500. They're all just following the same recipe. And this quote really nails it. For funds that track the same thing, performance is going to be almost exactly the same. The choice that really matters isn't the brand on the box, it's what's inside the box. Are you investing in tech or healthcare? That's the decision that moves the needle. All right, so if cost is a super tight race for the top spot and performance is basically a tie, where's the real difference? Well, that brings us to section 4, variety versus simplicity. And this is a big one. It's about finding that sweet spot between endless choices and just the core essentials. So on one extreme, you've got BlackRock's iShares. They offer something like 430 different ETFs. That is a massive number. Seriously, if you can think of a niche, robotics, water purity, you name it, they have probably got an ETF for it. And then, on the complete opposite side of the universe, you have Schwab. They offer about 30 ETFs. 30. Their whole philosophy is different. They've basically curated a greatest hits collection, giving you just the core building blocks you need. And this really shows you how differently these companies think. iShares is like a giant supermarket. With endless aisles, you can find anything. Vanguard and Schwab are more like a curated boutique. They have the essentials, and they're really, really good. And Fidelity, they're kind of in the middle, building out their lineup with a focus on those thematic and active funds for people who want to make more specific bets. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about some of the less obvious stuff.
the hidden advantages that can really make a difference over time. We're talking taxes and other perks.
So, one of the superpowers of ETFs is how tax efficient they are. And the secret sauce is this mechanism called in kind redemption. It's a little technical, but basically, when lots of people sell, the fund doesn't have to sell stocks and trigger a big tax bill for everyone else. They can just swap the actual stocks out. It's a really clever system that protects you, the long term holder, from paying taxes because of what other people are doing. And all the big players use this. But Vanguard had an ace up its sleeve for years. They had this patented structure that was like a supercharged version of this. Their ETFs and their mutual funds were two doors into the same giant pool of money. This unique setup let them be even more efficient at getting rid of taxable gains. Now, that patent actually expired in 2023, but it's a huge part of why Vanguard built its reputation for being so incredibly tax-friendly. Okay, but what about when you need help? What about customer service? This is where you see some massive differences. Fidelity and Schwab, they are known for amazing 24/7 service. You can even walk into a branch and talk to a real human. Then you have Vanguard. Remember, they're owned by investors, so their main goal is driving costs down, not winning customer service awards. It's much more of a do-it-yourself vibe. And iShares, well, they're a giant that serves institutions, so you don't really call them. You get service from your broker, which, funnily enough, might be Schwab or Fidelity. All right, we have covered a ton of ground: cost, performance, variety, taxes, service. So let's put it all together. Final section: who is actually the best for you? It all comes down to what you care about most. So here's the bottom line, the final verdict. If you just want the absolute lowest costs and a simple, no-fuss portfolio, then Vanguard or Schwab are going to be your champions, hands down. But if you're a tinkerer, if you want the widest selection possible to invest in super specific things, then nobody beats the menu at BlackRock's iShares. And if what you really value is amazing customer service, and maybe you want to dabble in some active or thematic funds, then Fidelity or Schwab are the ones that give you that full service experience. But, and this is maybe the most important point of this whole thing, you don't have to pick just one. You can absolutely mix and match. Love Fidelity's customer service? Great, open an account there. But then fill that account with cheap Vanguard and Schwab ETFs. The power is totally in your hands. You are the general manager of your own portfolio. So there it is. You know the players, you know the pros and cons, you know the rules of the game. Now, the only question left is, what's your next move?